Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be checking out the first Tyrannic War, Warhammer 40k by the Templin Institute. Yes guys, I've gotten a lot of recommendations for this one over on the Discord and in the YouTube comments, so that's awesome to see. Big thank you to everyone who was recommending this video to me. The Templin Institute, from what I've seen, make fantastic videos. I really enjoyed their video on the Black Templars and also Cadia. Both of those we did do reactions to, so if you want to see those videos, make sure you go look those up on my channel, because they were awesome videos. And you know, I'm really excited to check out more from the Templin Institute whenever I do get recommendations for them. The first Tyrannic War, obviously the Tyranids. I don't know a whole lot about the very first war. I'm pretty sure I forget which High Fleet this is. I want to say Behemoth, but I could be wrong. Now, I'm sure we're obviously going to find out more about that. And the first battle of McCraig, I think we watched a lore video which mentioned in passing kind of like the first Tyrannic War, but it'll be really interesting to kind of get an overall look of the war, you know, rather than like the Tyranids in general, I suppose, or maybe just a specific battle during the overall war itself. So yes, guys, if you enjoyed the video, of course, leave a like, subscribe for more content from me, and of course, leave your recommendations down in the comments below. Big shout out to all of our members, all the Hastati and our Principe Dagenhart. I appreciate you guys. You guys inspire me to make more content for you guys every single day. And yes, we are going to be streaming tonight. So if you're watching this the day it's uploaded, we will be streaming tonight, 6 p.m. EST. Make sure you guys come on down. It's looking like Dangleben and Pollux. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's looking like it's going to be that one, unless the vote suddenly changes in the next few hours here. But yes, guys, without any further delay, we're going to get right into this video. So yeah, let's make sure quality's great. Captions are on. Let's get right into it. Just grabbing a piece of paper there.
Whether you're battling swarms of genetically engineered machines in the grim darkness of the far future, or you just need a convenient place to store your flag, there's almost nothing the Templin Institute recommends more.
They got a War Thunder sponsor?
Those familiar with our operations will recognize that we're talking from experience on this one. But tanks are not without their challenges. They require constant maintenance, their tracks are always getting clogged with mud, and sometimes you end up standing directly behind one while trying to record some footage, and you're blasted in the face by an insane amount of diesel exhaust, but you don't want to ruin the shot. So you just stand there, and by the time you're able to run outside, your eyes are watering so badly it looks like you're in complete hysterics, which is especially embarrassing because you're surrounded by active duty members of the Canadian Forces who are all very polite, but you can tell they're very amused by what's just happened. Anyways, what was I saying?
No.
Oh, right. All these problems and many more have finally been solved by the sponsor of this investigation, War Thunder. From the boundless waters of the Pacific to the turbulent skies over Europe, War Thunder allows you to take command of over 2,000 tanks.
Very awesome that they actually got a War Thunder sponsor here.
The most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made. In dynamic, combined arms, PvP battles,
by the way, War Thunder, if you
1920s to the modern day,
if you want some ads, you know, hit me up, of course.
They even have the Leopard C2, the very tank the Templin Institute commanded just a few weeks ago. And as a stickler for realism, War Thunder really speaks my language. The vehicles are incredibly detailed and modeled all the way down to their individual components, with an incredibly sophisticated damage model to match. We're not talking hit points here. Instead, you'll
damage model in War Thunder is very impressive, is what I will say.
Blunder over that ridge completely blind and with no smoke screen, thanks to a damage X-ray showing you precisely what that enemy round did to your vehicle, your crew, and maybe your pride. But on the flip side, when you're the one in the
definitely your pride
position, you'll be able to see exactly how smart you were to aim for the ammunition storage. But of course, the coolest part of owning a tank is being able to make it your own, and War Thunder has it covered there too. There's an in-depth customization system with hundreds of options, historical markings, and paint schemes. Try out War Thunder for free on PC, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, or the previous console generation. And when you do, you'll get access to a whole host of bonuses from boosters, backups, and premium vehicles. So thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring this investigation, and I'll see you on the battlefield.
If you guys want to play War Thunder, obviously, you know, go claim that limited time offer. You know what I'm saying? I know they do that pretty frequently. Awesome that the Templin Institute managed to get a War Thunder sponsor. I think this video was uploaded about a year ago. Awesome to see. Good for them, man. That's great.
So thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring this investigation, and I'll see you.
Good ad too. Good ad. They did a good job on that one.
A day may come when the skies of Holy Terror are darkened by clouds of mycetic spores.
Oh no.
Its great bastions shattered beneath the weight of enormous tendrils.
Honestly, what a terrifying prospect.
And the last vestiges of man's presence on its home world are swept away. Such a fate has already befallen countless Imperial planets, each one home to billions of men and women,
yeah,
who even as the spores fell and defenses crumbled, refused to accept that their existence in this reality was over. It is foolhardy to believe that Terra is above such a fate.
It's definitely not. See, that's the fucked thing about it, is like if the Tyranids ever actually got to Terra, right? Much like, you know, with the Horus Heresy, when it was like traitor forces, there was sieges done on the planet, but you know, a Tyranid siege is done so much differently. They start harvesting the resources of a planet the instant that they show up. Now, there isn't much to harvest in terms of Terra, but what there is a lot of to harvest is a lot of biomass. You know what I'm saying? So fuck, I imagine they show up and the instant those fucking gigantic tendrils reach down from the atmosphere, like irreparable damage is already done to the planet at that point. To think that that could ever happen to Terra is insane, but it definitely could. They obviously just got to get there first. Obviously, the good thing about that is that the Tyranids take a while to travel from point to point, right? That's the only thing that is keeping the Imperium safe at this point, you know, is the fact that these invasions only happen. They don't happen at the same time. If these invasions happened at the same time, I think the Imperium would be pretty fucked as a whole.
Party was over. It is foolhardy to believe that Terra is above such a fate.
Definitely.
Nor is it inconceivable that its ultimate destiny may be as merely another dead world.
Sterile
in a
world.
galaxy stripped of all life. A silent husk left in the wake of the ultimate predator. Should that day ever arrive, it will be the final chapter of a story that began in the 745th year of the 41st millennium, with the start of the First Tyrannic War. Within the distant frontiers of the Eastern Fringe, the Adeptus Mechanicus had established a research outpost on the oceanic world of Tyran Primus.
Oh, we've heard about that.
Amongst their fields of study was the dissection of Tyran's immense marine predators, geotechnical investigations, and the exploitation of geothermal energy.
And I have to say, like, kind of getting this, it wasn't really a lore video on that planet, but a Servitor's Tale. You know, I always think about that story. That story was fantastic by Vox the Boy. We did do a reaction to that as well. That was fucking fantastic. And the fact that it like was a twist at the end there, that it was Tyran Prime, that like the planet he was looking for, the planet that this person was born on. It's just a cool little like callback, I guess. And, you know, obviously it was a beautiful world, you know, very, very lush. It was an ocean world, I believe. You know, had a nice, beautiful ocean on it. And then when the Imperium came back to it, I know like obviously planets can get lost, quote unquote, in the Imperium very easily. No one checked in on it for a while. And when somebody eventually did, they just found this planet fucking sterile, like a desert wasteland, you know? And they're like, what the fuck happened to this? It's only been like 2 or 3 years we came back. What the fuck? Like since we checked up on this. Crazy shit, like just how quickly it can happen. And obviously the Tyranids, you know, they finished up with it a lot quicker than you know, than 2 or 3 years. I'm pretty sure they probably finished up with it fucking instantly, you know.
Geotechnical investigations and the exploitation of geothermal energy. The outpost itself was a labyrinthine complex meticulously constructed across an ancient chain of volcano islands. It hosted a series of super deep boreholes that extended miles
like an
into the
archipelago,
planetary crust, ostensibly for geospatial mapping, but additionally as a method of shielding sensitive warp studies from cosmic rays. Tyran was not the only such outpost dedicated to this research, merely a minor node in a galaxy-spanning network of Mechanicus facilities. By every metric, Tyran was not exceptional or even remarkable within the Imperium's enormous research apparatus. Tyran's position, however, on the extreme edge of Imperial space, necessitated a far more capable garrison than would otherwise be assigned to an outpost of its size and importance. The facility itself was as much a fortress as a laboratory. Its structures extended deep into volcanic rock and were fortified against the tropical hurricanes that ravaged Tyran, as well as the occasionally hostile native life beneath its savage oceans.
Damn, I could imagine.
To ward off the raiders and pirates active throughout the eastern fringe, 4 anti-void ship defense lasers had been constructed across the volcanic chain,
Damn.
each enclosed within ceramite silos and void shield generators.
It's cool that, like, so I didn't know that this planet had, I guess, like an archipelago of islands in a sense. But it's very interesting that it does. And then, like, each island is kind of like its own, like, miniaturized fortress in a sense. That's really, really interesting. Whenever I pictured this before, I didn't really get that sense, but it's cool to learn a little bit more about it. Again, Templin Institute does a fantastic job with the lore, a fantastic job of explaining it. Their voice actors are always amazing. And yeah, man, I again, like, I have to give them credit for, you know, just like filling in the tidbits, you know, given the details, but still keeping it in a shorter time frame and keeping the story moving along. It's done in a really, really great way.
Each enclosed within ceramite silos and void shield generators. These were supplemented by 3 dozen autocannon or lascannon emplacements and overlapping rings of fire bases, trench lines, and bunkers. Their arrangement had been expertly overseen by Mechanicus artisans and concealed throughout the beaches, volcanoes, and jungles that surrounded the outpost. The garrison itself consisted of a mixed force, an elite unit drawn from the Scutari legions of the Mechanicus, and a far larger infantry regiment of the Astro Militarum. Additionally, the Tyran outpost made a convenient headquarters for anti-piracy operations throughout the eastern fringe. The Imperial Navy had stationed 3 full wings of Thunderbolt heavy fighters on Tyran, as well as a flotilla of 3 Endeavour-class light cruisers that conducted routine patrols throughout the planetary system and its closest neighbors.
So it's fucked to, like, think about what happens here, like, because this isn't like a small force. Like, it is, but it isn't, you know what I'm saying? It's still a pretty decent force. And for not, like, ever knowing what the Tyranids are, you know, what not knowing that they're coming for you, you know, just how fucking terrifying. Because, like, this, like, you would think with the spacecraft that they have there, like the ships that they have in the system, like, for anti-piracy reasons, you would think by all accounts that they should be good. They think they're safe against pretty much any threat that's out there. But then, like, to know that there's just some fucking, like, alien race that you've never fucking seen before making its way towards you, you know, fuck, it's just kind of terrifying, you know. Like, it makes you think, like, if by chance, like, you know, maybe there was just a bigger patrol here, maybe a bigger force stationed, you know, what could have happened, what could have changed? Probably not much, but maybe they could have been warned sooner or some such, you know, like, because I know they eventually do lose this planet, and it's some time before, like, the Imperium as a greater whole catches on to it, I'm pretty sure. If I'm not mistaken, it's been a while since we've checked it out.
Conducted routine patrols throughout the planetary system and its closest neighbors. It was these patrols that discovered the first evidence that an immense new Xenos threat was encroaching on the eastern fringe.
Yeah.
Since the outpost's construction, Mechanicus explorators had conducted regular studies of the surrounding planetary systems and had detailed information as to their native xenobiology. But in the 74th decade of the 41st millennium, patrols based out of Tyran had reported that worlds supposedly teeming with life were now completely barren.
Like, yeah.
Explorators later expanded on these reports, noting that every trace of life, down to the bacteria,
like, you just see planets starting to, like, be wiped on a trajectory towards you.
All biological matter.
What the fuck's going on?
Manner,
you know, like.
And reports were sent to the Explorator General of the Administratum. Though peculiar, these reports were ultimately deemed to be of low priority.
Yeah.
And no follow-up investigation was ordered. In the year 745, M41, the cause of these anomalies had arrived on the outskirts of the Tyran system. A hive fleet, the first of its kind to arrive in the galaxy, and what would later be classified by the Imperium as Behemoth, had been replenishing its biomatter in the surrounding area of space. The myriad of primitive worlds it had consumed replenished its biomass after a long extragalactic journey, and it was now fully prepared to engage a more sophisticated and advanced type of prey.
Goddamn.
By sheer accident, the Imperial outpost on Tyran was given a degree of warning. A survey ship, returning from another planetary system stripped of all life, emerged from the warp in a cloud of unidentified organic matter that had enveloped the edge of the system. It was quickly crippled by some of these objects, whose functions resembled those of void mines, but were clearly organic in nature. It limped back to Tyran proper, and when briefed on the interstellar situation, the outpost prepared for some kind of Xenos siege. When Behemoth arrived in orbit just days later, Tyran's planetary defense lasers immediately opened fire. The concentration of alien ships in orbit was so great that the batteries fired ceaselessly for over an hour, their effectiveness unclear due to the sheer volume of matter above them.
God.
Just as the defense lasers showed the most dire signs of overheating, their barrels close to melting, the Xeno swarm in orbit mysteriously withdrew. Believing this new enemy to be little more than mindless beasts, the ruling tech priest of Tyran ordered the 3 Imperial Navy cruisers under his command to pursue and harry the retreating Xenos.
And see, like, that's not even a bad take, right? Because they don't know what, like, it is, but it isn't, right? From his perspective, all right, maybe this is just a bunch of mindless fucking bugs, whatever, right? We don't know exactly what it is, but we're going to send our ships to go and harry their retreat if they're falling back. Normally, strategy-wise, that's completely sound, you know? If you can deal more damage to a retreating force on its way out the door, absolutely take advantage and do that if you can. The problem is like, that is a fucking fraction of its force, and they have no idea. Like, they haven't done proper reconnaissance, you know? They haven't reconnoitered necessarily, I guess, the system. And the thing about the Tyranids, obviously, is, like, we know they can obviously, whenever they attack a planet, they kind of, like, envelop it in a sense so that communications from astropaths and shit can't get out, which is fucking crazy, right? And I think that's what happens here to Tyran. Tyran. I forget the planet name. I don't forget it. I just forget how to pronounce it, I suppose. But yeah, man, like just how fucked up, you know what I mean? Like, it's such a terrifying prospect getting attacked by the Tyranids, man. I definitely, I think out of any enemy, if I was in the Warhammer 40k universe and I had to fight them, I don't know, like, because the prospect of capture from, like, the Drakari, for example, is fucking awful, or Chaos is fucking awful. But man, just the hopelessness of fighting the Tyranids once you know what's there, once you know what's coming, and with Gene Stealer cults and the like, fuck, I don't know, man. It's such a toss up. I don't know who I'd rather fight. I'd preferably fight the orcs, because at least, you know, at least the orcs are simple, you know, they just want a good fight, you know, they're just happy having a good fight, you know, they don't have any, like, ulterior motive to, like, torture you and kill you in, like, gruesome ways and shit like that. They'll just cut you in half and laugh about it, you know. That's the best you can hope for, honestly. Just smash my head in and be done with it, like, straight up.
Command to pursue and harry the retreating Xenos. This retreat, however, had been a ruse. The moment the Imperial cruisers had moved beyond the protective envelope of the planetary defense lasers, the swarm suddenly turned, and the cruisers were ripped apart in a matter of moments.
Fuck.
Almost too quickly for a distress call to be sent. The attack on the planet resumed.
That's fucked. What an amazing
had
bait,
been nothing
though.
more than a probing attack, conducted in such a way as to reveal Imperial strategy and capabilities.
Like, what a massive bait, though. And right after that happens, like, you must think, fuck, greater intelligence. Now, I don't think they do, but, like, to anyone with a brain, you would see them bait like that. Okay, we're going to harry out. The minute they're out of range, turn, immediately enveloped, killed. Like, you would have to think greater strategy, greater thinking on the behalf of your enemy at that point. If you don't, then you're just underestimating them entirely at that point. But a matter of moments to rip apart those ships, those cruiser ships, that's fucking insane. Like, that is a mass amount of firepower. And if they kept that in reserve, I feel like, man, the planet could have held a lot longer, to be honest with you. You know, if they stayed in range of the planetary defense batteries, fuck, you know, what a devastating loss instantly to incur, because now there's nothing stopping a ground invasion, absolutely nothing prohibiting a ground invasion. Besides the defenses on the planet itself, of course.
The tempestuous skies of Tyran were overwhelmed, with the fire of the defense lasers only intermittently effective against a foe that seemed to know their precise fields of fire. Organic drop pods fell in such numbers that the seas of Tyran appeared to boil at their impact. They quickly turned red with blood, and the beaches were full of horrifically mauled oceanic life, attempting to flee the confines of the sea.
Fuck.
What next emerged from the oceans and the organic drop pods that had landed on the island chain itself were like nothing ever before encountered by the Imperium. A towering wave of creatures, each one a swirling mass of serrated claws and sharpened teeth, scaled even the tallest bastions of the outpost. Wherever they met the Imperial defenders, the Xenos suffered unthinkable casualties, from disciplined lascannon fire or autocannon rounds, until the ground was covered in their corpses.
But it literally doesn't
in the
matter.
skies above, the Imperial fighter wings and every other ship fit to fly carved through the swirling masses of flying organisms,
Wow.
their broken bodies falling like rain. But the success would never last.
You literally
As if
don't have
a
enough
single
ammo,
command
like
had been
straight up.
addressed to the swarm in an instant, the Xenos would suddenly and violently shift tactics. The barrels of the defense lasers were clogged with their bodies until they couldn't fire. The Thunderbolt's engines were choked with spores and blood, and even veteran guardsmen of Catachan were out-hunted by a species that seemed aware of every human instinct. A full year later, when the Imperium of Man had finally dispatched a relief force,
Like a
the
year
fate of
later.
Tyran was revealed. The oceans were gone, along with every trace of life. Like the planets in the
And
surrounding...
it must make you think too, like, what was the last, distress call they sent out? Because, like, you know, they're probably like, oh, well, we got some Xenos infringing on our borders. You know, it shouldn't be a problem, but, you know, if you could send some support, we'd appreciate it. And then the Imperium just, like, if that's the last message they got, the Imperium would be like, okay, swick, we'll get around to it when we get around to it. You know, but a year later is fucking crazy. Imagine, dude, you show up and it's just like, bro, this fell in days. Like, it fell in days. Because I had no idea at that point, right? And I'm pretty sure the Tyranids, like, again, blocked communication after a certain point, right? Because that's just the shit that they do. Fuck.
along with every trace of
4
life.
years.
Like the planets in
Debilitating.
the surrounding sectors, it was just another barren rock.
Is this the right
Deep
place?
within one of the boreholes,
Like, what the fuck?
among the few remaining traces of the Imperial presence on Tyran, a Mechanicus data codex was recovered. Within was a full record of the planet's defenses, from the first sightings of the Xeno swarm on the edge of the system to the breach of the last command bunker deep within the facility. Amongst the most startling details encoded into the codex was that from the time the first landing occurred, the defenders of Tyran had held on for barely a single hour.
Oh my god.
Embedded within the relief force was an Imperial Inquisitor, Fidus Cryptman, whose exploits during the
Cryptman.
suppression of the Macarian heresy had made him a favored agent among Imperial power brokers. Though the annihilation of Imperial outposts under mysterious circumstances was hardly unusual, the thoroughness of Tyran's transformation from a verdant oceanic world to a barren planetoid intrigued the Inquisitor. He determined these new Xenos to be a grave threat to Imperial interests, and named them Tyranids in a grim acknowledgement of the first human world they had consumed.
Interesting.
Cryptman sent warnings to Imperial authorities across the Eastern Fringe, which quickly proved to be prescient. But as Hive Fleet Behemoth began to advance from the outer frontiers of the galaxy into densely populated and developed Imperial territories, no manner of defense proved sufficient. More star systems went silent. The garrisons of Hive worlds,
Fuck.
Forge worlds, even Fortress worlds, and every other category of Imperial planet proved as incapable in resisting the Tyranids as those on Tyran. In each instance, Cryptman's forces arrived too late to assist in the defense or observe the Tyranids directly. His only evidence of their approach was limited to more dead worlds and void ships left adrift, their crews missing, and hulls scorched and battered by what seemed to be exotic acids and terrible claws.
Like, isn't that fucking insane though? Like, literally you're showing up like too late each time and it's just like worlds fucking scoured in their wake. Like, what a terrifying prospect, man. It's like a galactic boogeyman, like this time around, like the very first time it happens, you know? Because it's like, what the fuck is doing this? Like, obviously we have like these reports of Xenos. We have like even this defense log. Everyone needs to be on guard. They send out that warning. But then every time a place comes under attack, they maybe get the distress call. Like, okay, I think we have Xenos on our border. Blip, nothing more. Okay, fuck. Let's go there and investigate right away. Get there, planet's dead. It's like, bro, holy fuck. Like, and and obviously with the ability that like they can, again, stop communication from planet to planet, or, stop planets from calling for help. Yeah, man, like it's brutal, because after a certain point that, the system would just go silent. Yeah, as they say, straight up go silent. You get nothing back. You'd be like, that's suspicious, They reported all fine a couple of weeks ago, and now suddenly they just won't respond. What the fuck? Man, I fucking love the Tyranids, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I hate them. I'd be fucking shitting my pants fighting them. But as an enemy, man, they're so fucking cool. I won't lie. I really enjoyed them a lot.
Scorched and battered by what seemed to be exotic acids and terrible claws. Much of the difficulty encountered by Cryptmen in getting ahead of the encroaching swarm.
Now, obviously, we know a little bit about Cryptmen too. Some of you guys have talked to me about him.
Communications and travel through this alternate dimension of pure psychic energy were unreliable even during favorable circumstances. But the navigators, astropaths, and sanctioned psychers aboard Cryptmen's vessels reported a new kind of interference. Connections to the warp were increasingly smothered by a seemingly random yet consistent psychic signal, emanating without any discernible pattern or frequency. Blinded, deafened, and now slowed to a crawl by this shadow in the warp, Cryptman slowly discovered that his warnings to now dead Imperial worlds had been garbled, misinterpreted, or never received at all.
Fuck.
An attempt was made to use an astropathic relay station in the Thandros system, specifically designed to overcome warp interference. But when Cryptman arrived, the station was adrift. The Void Station, like the Imperial worlds encountered by Cryptman before, had been stripped of all biomatter, and its arsenal completely expended. Mining stations situated throughout the system were similarly silent and completely empty.
God. Because they don't eat the machines or like any of the husks of the ship or anything like that, because it's not biomatter. So you're just coming across like drifting space hulks, you know what I'm saying? And it's just fucking like a mess on the inside, I imagine. God damn, dude. How awful that must be to just come across. You'd be like, what the fuck is going on?
Still lacked a clear picture
Literally galactic
of the size and nature of Hive Fleet Behemoth. But in studying the positions of dead worlds left in its wake, he was able to accurately project its course. Once the relay station over Thandros was repaired, and contact with the wider Imperium established, Cryptman's reports and the recovered data codex from Tyran were hurriedly analysed. Agreeing with Cryptman's own assessment and recommendations, he was directed by the Ordo Xenos of the Inquisition to make all possible speed for Ultramar, the greatest bastion of the Eastern Fringe, and the most formidable obstacle in the path of Hive Fleet Behemoth. Up until this point, what would become known as the First Tyrannic War was hardly a war at all, rather a series of surprise attacks and massacres against unprepared, isolated Imperial worlds. Most suffered from widespread corruption within their governments, deteriorating infrastructure, and severe negligence in every level of their defense forces and military institutions. Ultramar stood in stark contrast.
Yeah, Ultramar's fucking based.
Once a deeply integrated Imperial satrapy known as the 500 Worlds, its worlds and star systems had retained their close connections, sophistication, and capabilities, despite the dissolution of their overarching administrative structure. In practice, the entire Ultramar subsector was also the stellar empire of the Ultramarines.
Yes.
One of the Imperium's most vaunted Astartes chapters. Now fully aware of the impending threat, Marnius Calgar, Chapter Master of the Ultramarines, assumed total command over the Imperial response. His efforts were focused on Macragge, capital of Ultramar, and one of the most fortified sites within the entire Imperium. Though the Tyranids would be engaged at every opportunity across the 500 worlds, the task of breaking its momentum would fall upon the defenders of Macragge alone. Ultramarines across the galaxy were hastily recalled to the defense of their homeworld. They were joined by contingents from their successor chapters and countless other Imperial units who in the preceding millennia had pledged themselves through oaths and blood to the defense of Ultramar. Every Imperial institution with assets in range of the subsector rerouted them to take part in the defense, from Astra Militarum regiments to a full legion of the Collegia Titanica.
Oh, that's awesome.
In orbit, the battle...
Imagine they just send out the call and they're just like, guys, a fucking Xenos race we've never seen is coming to attack literally the fucking capital itself. Literally the capital, Macragge itself. Please, everybody send anything you have, and they just like straight up, like everyone's fucking coming. It's just such a cool aspect. Like you see it happen in Warhammer a lot. Like a call is sent out, hey, we need fucking any available force. Like it needs to muster here fucking yesterday. And then suddenly you have like several different sub factions just show up, and it's just like it's awesome to see. I love it. And I love like the variation of like unit types too in Warhammer 2, man. Like just seeing like, you know, like the fact that you have Ultramarines here, you have like obviously Guard Regiment here, you probably have Mechanicus units here, you obviously have the Titan Legions showing up. It's awesome to see, man.
Full legion of the Collegia Titanica. In orbit, the battle barges and strike cruisers of the Ultramarines assembled.
Battle barges are fucking sick also.
Reinforced by elements of the Imperial Navy, and even merchant vessels hastily repurposed into gunboats or
Look how
fireships.
crazy. Like, yeah, our civilian navy fucking
The bulk
pimp
of
it
the
out.
Imperial defense, however, consisted of units mobilized from the Ultramar Auxilia. Unlike other planetary defense forces present throughout the Imperium, whose role was often limited to a single planet, Ultramar's local forces were organized under a command structure that extended throughout the entire subsector. The Auxilia's size and capabilities were accordingly far greater, one of the most well-trained and supplied defense forces in the Imperium, resembling more the regiments of the Astra Militarum. For solar weeks, the Imperium
So even their militia is still pretty cracked
as the
out.
outer systems of Ultramar reported contact with Behemoth. Inquisitor Cryptman himself barely managed to arrive before the Shadow in the Warp engulfed the region, reporting to Marnius Calgar the insights he had gleaned from studying Behemoth's advance. This would be the first real effort to stop the Tyranid threat, and neither man knew what small detail might prove to be invaluable in the coming effort. The first concentrated attempts to stop Behemoth were unsustainable, and quickly developed into hastily organized retreats and meaningless slaughter. Prandium, the jewel of Ultramar, and famed across the Imperium for its perfectly engineered gardens and forests, was amongst the first to fall, swiftly joined by Calth, a world that had fiercely resisted the traitor legions during the Horus Heresy, only to be seemingly overwhelmed in a matter of days by the Tyranids. Everywhere Behemoth made contact with Imperial
They just get
defenders,
overwhelmed
the
immediately.
results were disastrous.
Yeah.
And most critically, failed to buy time for the ongoing mobilization effort centered in Macragge.
Like, that's the thing. Macragge is being, like, built up at this time to be fucking impenetrable. And every other world out there is just trying to, like, essentially slow the advance. Halt them if they can. But, and that's the main goal, obviously. But they expect that, they don't expect that these planets will hold, but they expect that at least time will be bought for them. But literally falling in a matter of days, and then the High Fleet's on the move again. It just consumed that entire world's worth of biomass, and now it's on the move again. Keeps on coming. It's just like, holy fuck! Like, it would be such a hopeless situation just knowing that shit's coming towards you. And to think again, like, they can't even like organize a proper defense until Macragge, right? Like, Macragge is where it's going to happen, but it's just such a high risk thing, putting all your eggs in one basket like that kind of thing.
Failed to buy time for the ongoing mobilization effort centered in Macragge.
Goddamn.
Most concerning was the realization that the Codex Hastatis, the great tome of military strategy penned by the Ultramarines Primarch, Rabute Gilliman himself, failed to possess any insights into how such an unprecedented foe...
Isn't that unfortunate?
The fierce hit-and-run attacks against the High Fleet, as well as the bold yet doomed attempts to reinforce those already under siege, were abandoned, and the static lines in Macragge reinforced. The capital of Ultramar had made use of every second afforded to them to prepare, but the shadow in the warp had left its defenders blind to events outside their system. The fate of Battlefleet Braca was of pivotal importance. The Imperial Navy's High Command in Segmentum Tempestus had ordered almost the entirety of their forces to defend Ultramar, but as the first Tyrannid organisms entered the boundaries of the Macragge planetary system, it remained unknown if they were still en route, had been diverted elsewhere, or had perhaps already been destroyed.
Like, yeah, wow. And then you see, like, communications being broken down instantly. The second that happens, like, you know, your entire fucking overarching command structure, especially with the Imperium, where you, like, you know, you need people's, like, okays to do shit, or you're just a fucking heretic, you know, you're a traitor, you know, you're acting on your own accord in a sense. The second you can't communicate between each other, like, it's such a hindrance for the Imperium. They really, really rely on their communications as a whole, you know, because and also to think, like, too, that you know, your reinforcements could have already been slaughtered. Like, you got no idea. Again, just like adding to morale confusion, adding to, like, the confusion overall in general. God, I again, man, I'm really liking these Tyrannid videos. It's awesome to learn more about them, learn more about battles and shit and wars that happened during them. And again, I'm pretty sure it's Hive Fleet Behemoth. Are they the red color schemed Tyrannids, if I recall? I might be wrong. I know Leviathan is obviously like purplish, purple tinted in a sense. I know I'm trying to think, what are the other colors? I know there's like a red one. I'm pretty sure it's Behemoth. What are the other colors? You know, I'd have to know. I want to learn more about the Tyrannids in general. I'm assuming each, like, tier, like the first Tyrannic War, the second Tyrannic War, I'm assuming each one is a different Hive Fleet. And each Hive Fleet obviously looks different. So I'm interested to learn some more about them.
Already been destroyed. The battle for the home
Check out
world
the
of
second Tyrannic War next, if there's a
opened in
video on
much
that.
the same way as the fall of Tyrann, albeit on an exponentially larger scale. The Tyrannid Hive Fleet swarmed into the system from multiple points, the sheer number of organisms rendering the Imperial defense confused and disjointed. The initial plan had called for Imperial warships to take station alongside Macragg's Star Nova-class orbital weapon stations. With concentrated bastions of immense firepower, Marneus Calgar hoped to delay any landing on Macragge for as long as possible. This quickly proved untenable. Every Imperial strongpoint within the system found itself immediately engaged in a battle for its own survival, unable to assist one another or coordinate their fire. Countless Tyrannid bioships were destroyed, but the flood of Behemoth was so great that landings occurred across Macragge almost immediately.
Wow.
Wave after wave.
Immediately, there's just so many of them that, you know, again, your command structure breaks down, communications start breaking down, and every ship that was organized to defend certain assets, they can no longer do so because of the overwhelming force that they're encountering, that they're literally just in a fight to stay alive on their own accord, and it literally just turns into every man for themselves. Within the first few minutes, there's just so fucking many of them that the ships can't stop them. Your ships literally cannot stop the onslaught that's coming, and a ground invasion immediately happens. How fucked, man, how fucked. And every planet it takes, every planet that they let fall, that the planetary defense fell, it just added to the biomass. It just added to their numbers. It's just such an insane enemy to fight.
Landings occurred across Macragge almost immediately. Wave after wave of Tyrannid organisms smashed against the orbital defenses, while just as many slipped through gaps, their progress barely impeded by the rapidly developing orbital battle. On the planet itself, Imperial forces had been divided into 3 army groups. 2 of these were based on each of Macragg's polar fortresses, continent-sized bastions, defended by immense batteries of anti-starship weaponry. With orbiting Imperial naval forces so quickly committed and overwhelmed, the polar fortresses represented the last major asset able to assist the battle in orbit.
Immediately
of further Tyrannid landings.
Immediately your last fucking line of defense becomes your first. Isn't that insane, dude? Like, instantly within, like, the first few minutes of the battle. How fucking hopeless. Calgar probably was shitting himself during this battle, dude. Like, great respect to the man, of course, but, like, oh, what a fucking unprecedented situation this would have been, dude. Holy fuck.
The last army group, personally commanded by Marneus Calgar,
Literally.
would act as a more mobile force. It would simultaneously exploit any opportunities to delay the Tyranid advance on the poles, and prioritize the destruction of the largest Tyranid bioforms that seemed to act as officers, or perhaps relays, for whatever consciousness was directing their
And they
attack.
have no idea how the
Calgar
Tyranids even
was at
work. They have
first
no idea.
enormously successful in this, swiftly destroying Tyranid landing sites before they could develop into established beachheads. Yet, it was clear that such measures could only delay what appeared to be an inevitable slaughter, especially as Hive Fleet Behemoth began to exhibit even more unusual and sophisticated tactics. Sirocco Starport, a pivotal assembly point for the Imperial Navy, was almost overrun by a strange new form of Tyranid infiltrator, leaving its critically important fleet of transatmospheric shuttles devastated. No longer able to as rapidly redeploy, the army group under Calgar took positions across Cold Steel Ridge, an enormous industrial complex that stretched across the northern seas of the planet. Though the complexities of the Tyranid hive mind were barely understood by the Imperium of this era, it was undeniable that whatever was in control of Hive Fleet Behemoth had recognized the importance of Calgar. As he continued to hold off the Tyranid swarms at Cold Steel Ridge, specifically engineered organisms were deployed to neutralize him.
Wow.
Calgar failed to grasp.
And just showing like the ingenuity of the Tyranids on the fly like that. They're literally just like, okay, we have this new problem. We have this new specific type of unit we're fighting, maybe person we're fighting. We're going to fucking just engineer on the fly during mid battle. We're just going to engineer something new that could potentially deal with this. Fucking just crazy shit, man. Like, I gotta give props to the Tyranids, man. They're horrifying, but fuck, if they're not inventive, you know what I mean? Like, holy.
The organisms were deployed to neutralize him. Calgar failed to grasp the change in the enemy's tactics until it was nearly too late.
Oh, man.
He was lured into the open by the destruction of the Pride of Hera, a defense auxiliary Baneblade that had served as a linchpin on its local sector of the defense line. Moving to reinforce the now vulnerable position, Calgar and his bodyguards were ambushed by swarms of Tyranid creatures that were thought to be dead, but had in fact merely remained motionless for hours. Larger Tyranid bioforms struck down the chapter master, who was quickly evacuated back into orbit. The battle barge Octavius, in which the grievously wounded Calgar now made his new command post, was one of only a few vessels that had survived the onslaught of Behemoth.
So they're literally getting kicked off the planet and having to retreat. That's
Had been
fucked.
destroyed or had their ammunition supplies expended, while whatever void ships remained could only harry the vast swarm of Tyranid organisms that continued to land on the planet. Every spaceborne
Like, they're not a
asset present in the
defense. They're not a defense anymore in space. It's literally just a harrying force at this point in space. They can't dream to stop what's happening at this point. All they can do is inflict damage from afar and try to not, because if they commit themselves, they're finished. They're just going to get overwhelmed immediately. Like, there's no stopping that. All they can do is harry from a distance and like attempt to keep on in the fight but survive. Like, that's the main thing here, is survive. Every ship immediately was just like non-organized, disorged instantly. Fuck.
continued to land on the planet.
What a compelling
Every
like battle
spaceborne
so
asset
far.
present in the
Compelling war.
system had been fully committed, and no reserves remained to challenge the invasion of Macragge proper. On the planet itself, the polar fortresses continued to hold, though the Tyranids had achieved their first initial breakthroughs across defense lines that ringed the installations. Even the Titan Legion assigned to their defense were overwhelmed and destroyed.
Wow.
The forces available to defend the polar fortresses were quickly diminishing, the obvious prelude to a much larger effort by the Swarm.
Isn't that
would
fuck?
surely
Titans
see both
falling.
sides of resistance overwhelmed
Your Titan Legion getting obliterated.
at terrible cost.
I imagine
Calgar
morale would
organized
be
the remnants
tanking
of
at
the
that
Imperial
point.
battle groups in orbit into a single, battered force in which to make his final stand. Astonishingly though, in this pivotal moment, Tyranid bioships began to withdraw from the planet, seemingly unwilling to bear the firepower still emanating from Macragg's terrestrial polar batteries. Their maneuver gave Calgar an immense opportunity to deliver a massive punishing blow as the swarm moved to reorient itself. But wary of Cryptman's reports, he soon recognized the action for what it truly represented: A feint intended to draw out the remaining Imperial warships.
Like, wow.
Just as had occurred over Tyrann.
Literally. And it works.
But whether intending to sacrifice his remaining warships while inflicting the greatest amount of damage on the enemy, or somehow given warning of the events that would follow, Calgar's force moved into the opening Hive Fleet Behemoth had created. The Imperial battle group pursued the Tyranids to Circe, an outlying gas giant in the planetary system, devastating the swarm's fleeing bioships along the way. Just as Cryptman had warned, however, a second Tyranid force lay hidden in Circe's rings, and now swarmed out to overwhelm the isolated warships well beyond the protective envelope of Macragge's planetary guns. It was Behemoth that found itself trapped, however. It had moved glacially slow through the shadow in the warp, but now, in this pivotal moment, Battlefleet Braca exploded out from the warp and into real space. Hundreds of warships of the Imperial Navy, now perfectly situated in the midst of Hive Fleet Behemoth. A savage void engagement erupted again as Imperial and Tyrannic reinforcements flooded into the
So that fleet showed up, like obviously slowed. They had no idea what happened to it. They didn't arrive in time. They put up a desperate defense for the planet. They saw an opening to go for the Tyranid fleet, the Tyranid Hive fleet withdrawing there. Chased them down, knew it was going to be a trap, but still decided to chase them down, try to take advantage, do as much damage as they could so that maybe the defenses on the planet could hold. But at a key moment, that fleet that they were waiting on comes into play. So I could totally see, with the Hive fleet pulling off the planet, trying to encircle the remaining ships. If they did that, the planet would have absolutely fell. But in a space battle, they're definitely at a weak point here, given that they gave away their only advantage, which was just overwhelming the planet and consuming the planet's biomass to rejuvenate itself as quickly as they could there. That would have probably been the best play for the Hive fleet in my mind here, rather than try to do this encirclement play. Obviously that's not bad, but again, they're not replenishing numbers in space and subspace. They're replenishing their numbers by eating planets, and they could have, I think, very easily had that planet if they further committed to it even more.
Engagement erupted again as
Maybe I'm
Imperial
wrong.
and Tyranid reinforcements flooded into the outskirts of the system, neither side possessing a significant advantage. Behemoth, though, seemed poised to accomplish its immediate objective, utilizing its significant numerical advantage to deny Imperial reinforcements from aiding Macragge. Since their emergence into the galaxy, the Imperium of Man had fought Hive Fleet Behemoth with every weapon available to it, from virus bombs and cyclonic torpedoes to a bloodied bayonet on the end of a conscript's lasgun.
Wow.
The Imperium's defenders had utilized every strategy, every tactic, anything that might afford them just another few moments against the onslaught of the swarm. But what ultimately shattered Behemoth was mankind's oldest weapon, its first and its last. Pure, unrestrained hate. In a final sacrifice, Lord Admiral Zacharias Wrath of the Imperial Navy drove his battered and burning flagship, the Emperor-class battleship Dominus Astra, directly into the heart of Behemoth. As the last vestiges of its noble hull were covered beneath the weight of Xenos organisms, the ship detonated its warp drives, and a new star of cataclysmic power briefly flared on the outskirts of the Macragge system.
Wow.
When Calgar's battle group and the reinforcements
And that's
from
one of the
Battlefleet
bigger-
Braca returned to
I'm pretty sure that's one of the biggest, bigger, if not biggest, warship classes that they actually have in the Astra Militarum there, or the Imperial Navy, I should say. So yeah, I imagine its warp drives going critical like that. He just sacrificed himself. It's the only way. Baited himself right into the middle of that Hive fleet. They swarmed it. Fuck it. Warp drives activated. They fucking, they activated them, made them go critical. And yeah, I imagine that would be the end of the Hive fleet pretty easily, just like that. You know what I'm saying? Again, the Hive fleet doesn't move fast in subspace. They don't really move fast at all from what I can understand, especially from playing Battlefleet Gothic Armada in subspace. They're one of the slower factions for sure. So not being able to flee that, yeah, I imagine that would probably clean them up pretty nicely. And I guess I misspoke. I guess the planetary battle was still going on. They just feigned with their space forces, if I'm recalling. Or maybe they still had ground assets on the planet. They just weren't reinforcing them at that point.
When Calgar's battle group and the reinforcements from Battlefleet Bracca returned to clear the remaining hive ships from the orbit of Macragge proper, contact had been lost with both of the polar fortresses.
Oh.
The onslaught they had unleashed on the Tyranids before falling silent, however, was obvious. Survivors were eventually found amidst the ruins of the southern bastion, while the Imperial relief effort that pushed into the northern pole found that the defenders had been killed to a man.
Goddamn.
The entire Ultramarines' first company had been annihilated, trading their lives for just a few more salvos fired from the fortress's guns. Behemoth had been shattered, and Macragge saved from total annihilation, but no single battle could bring about an end to Tyranids in the eastern fringe. It would be years before the Macragge system was fully cleansed.
Wow.
While the campaigns to similarly clear the surrounding systems and sectors would take centuries, and further Imperial armies marshaled from across the galaxy. As mankind's forces retook the systems consumed by Behemoth, their world stripped bare, the full extent of the Tyrannic war became clear. As on Macragge, isolated Imperial fleets and armies had fought heroically throughout the eastern fringe, a vital yet overshadowed aspect of the Imperium's defense. But mankind had not fought alone. Evidence was found of an enormous battle between the Hive Fleet and a collection of Orc freebooters known as the Star Crumpers, whose kill cruisers had long been a major threat to Imperial shipping in the region.
That's hilarious.
Captain Blackgate himself was believed killed, and the greenskin presence in the surrounding region eradicated, albeit temporarily.
That's kind of awesome. Like, you know, unironically, like the Tyranids, it just shows that they're a threat to literally every species out there, you know? Unironically, obviously, like the orcs aren't out there helping the humans by any means, but they're just they happen to be fighting them at the exact same time. They're just as much as a fucking menace to the orcs as they are the humans, you know. I just think that's really awesome. Like they're not fighting alongside them, but they're fighting with them. Again, like with them against a common enemy. You know what I'm saying? I think that's awesome. Wow, but it's kind of sad that he died. Goddamn, they you know. Orcs in that system got wiped out because the Tyranids came in. Oh, man.
Skin presence in the surrounding region eradicated.
No, me, I love the orcs. Orcs are decent.
Renegade elements had also taken up arms against Behemoth, with the notable fortress world of heretic Hastatis likewise consumed during the Hive Fleet's advance.
They're just menacing everybody.
Particular attention was given to the fate of the warband's leader, the sorcerer Malafor, who had apparently been driven insane by the sheer power of the shadow in the warp. More curious, though, was the fate of Solemnace, a world directly in the path of the Tyranids that the Hive Fleet astonishingly made deliberate moves to avoid. These reports, and every other bit of data that might be gleaned from the invasion, were relentlessly recorded and transmitted back to Terra. 116 years after the Battle of Macragge, the Ultramarines recorded that they had finally recovered from the losses sustained against Hive Fleet Behemoth.
Fuck.
Their homeworld was likewise rebuilt, and the surrounding sectors repopulated, but the stain of the Tyranids could never be fully removed. Across the eastern fringe, there have been sporadic encounters with the remnants of Behemoth, lone Tyranid organisms that have regressed to a more bestial state, or even entire splinter tendrils, left adrift or in hibernation in the dark void between star systems. Yet nothing could erase the most pronounced evidence of the conflict. Hundreds of barren worlds.
Hundreds of barren worlds.
Teeming masses of humanity.
Wow. Just to give you the scale, like this wasn't just like a couple worlds they fought over, hundreds of worlds barren. And probably the Imperium had no idea half these worlds had even fallen until after this battle at Macragge took place. This was in the 116 years after that the reclamation efforts took place. Fucking crazy to just know, like they finally realized the full fucking scale of like a Hive Fleet Behemoth. Like this isn't just like, you know, one fleet, quote unquote, moving through a system. This is like a huge fucking tendril that's eating planets everywhere, you know. It's just one of those things. Like it's, You know, there's so fucking many of them, and the fact that it takes 100 years to get rid of them, you know, after this decisive quote unquote battle, then they're on the back foot for 100 fucking years to still rid the sector of them. Fucking crazy, man.
Been teeming masses of humanity.
Really good video so
Even
far.
So, the High Lords of Terror were quick to judge that the threat of the Tyranids had been ended.
Oh no.
This was not the first time a new Xeno species had been encountered, only to be dramatically and violently extinguished. Like the Rangdan Xenocides of the Great Crusade, it was expected that the Tyranid invasion would be just another footnote in Imperial history. Something to be honored, but quietly forgotten. Several across the Imperium suspected otherwise, however, Inquisitor Fidus Cryptman first among them. Too much of the Tyranids remained unexplained, for no further investigation to be conducted.
Literally. Should we look into this
The
anymore?
Bell of
No.
Lost Souls.
Forget
high
about
atop
it.
the Tower of Heroes, in the center of the Imperial Palace on Terra, is known to sound whenever the greatest heroes of mankind take their place at the Emperor's side. It rang out in honor of the billions of souls lost to the advance of Hive Fleet Behemoth. And just as Cryptman suspected, it rang out again to mark those lost some 2.5 centuries later, against Hive Fleet Kraken. A mere 5 years after that, the bell sounded again, this time to mark the devastation of Baal and the supposed defeat of Hive Fleet Leviathan. Each time the Imperium has declared victory, and each time that declaration has proven premature.
Yeah.
As the Fourth Tyrannic War begins, and vast hive fleets begin their inexorable advance across the whole of Segmentum Pacificus, the battles of Tyrann, Macragge, and all the others are revealed for what they truly were. The opening act of a slaughter that has just begun. A day may come when the skies of Holy Terror are darkened by clouds of mycetic spores, its great bastions shattered beneath the weight of enormous tendrils that stretch into orbit, and the last vestiges of man's presence on its home world are swept away. Perhaps then the Bell of Lost Souls will sound for the final time, not in honor of some great victory, but as the final act of the human race, as it rages violently,
Oh god.
but helplessly, against the dying of the light.
That looks fucked.
Thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring
Wow.
this investigation into the first Tyrannic
Great
War.
video.
Use the link in the description below to mount up and get War Thunder on your platform of choice, along with a whole host of bonuses. And remember, whether you find yourself facing alien swarms or hostile armor, big guns never tire.
Of course not. Wow, guys, that was awesome. That was a great video by the Templin Institute. As always, I really enjoyed that. The first Tyrannic War. I would love to check out some more videos of the second, third. I guess we're on the fourth now. Love to check out some more about the other ones sometime as well. I don't know really much about the second and third one, other than obviously they said at the end there, the second one I think was Hive Fleet Kraken, and the third one was Hive Fleet Leviathan. I don't really know much more about the details of them, other than, I guess, the Hive Fleet names now. So yes, guys, if you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe for more content from me, and of course, leave your recommendations down in the comments below. Come on down, join our Discord, join our Legion Day, guys. It's awesome to see you guys there. And yeah, big thank you to all of our members, all of the Hastati and our Principe Dagenhart. I appreciate you, sir. You guys inspire me to make more content for you guys every single day. And yeah, guys, this has been Centurion, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace, guys.